I got this comment on one of my Facebook posts that I wanted to critique. It said, Bitcoin is too high right now, could go to zero tomorrow, buy cash flowing assets. I want to take apart that comment piece by piece, critique by critique for each of those three items. One, he spelled Bitcoin as bit space coin. For the record, it's one word, Bitcoin, one word. And then he said, Bitcoin is too high right now, T-O. Obviously, that should be T-O-O. So too high right now. Anyway, that being said, let's go line by line. Bitcoin is too high right now. Clearly, this individual is stuck comparing Bitcoin to the past, but that's not what you should ever compare Bitcoin to, because Bitcoin has always been too high right now compared to every price in the past. As long as you're looking back, 3 or 4 years, it's always been higher. And so comparing it to the past doesn't make any sense, because by that definition, Bitcoin was expensive when it was a penny, because prior to a penny, it was worth zero. And when it was worth 10 cents, it was expensive compared to a penny. So past comparisons make no sense. What you should compare it to, for example, is a forward comparison like gold. Well, all the gold in the world is worth $24 trillion, and all the Bitcoin in the world is worth $2 trillion. So Bitcoin can go up by a factor of 10 before it's expensive compared to gold. Until then, it is cheap compared to gold. And gold's value is predominantly driven by its monetary properties, not its industrial or decorative jewelry uses, for example. And so the right way to compare Bitcoin is, what is the value of a neutral reserve asset? Meaning an asset that anyone in the world can own, any government, any person, any company, that nobody else can make more of, that has perfect monetary properties and qualities. What is that value? Well, we can debate. Is it the value of all the gold in the world? That's sort of an easy threshold. If so, that's more than 10 times as big as its current price. If it's the value of half of all of the assets that are currently used as a store of value, then you're looking at $10 or $20 million per Bitcoin. And if it's half of all the assets in the world, because half of the assets are used as stores of value, you're looking at like $43 million per coin. I have no idea what the right number is, but 115,000 is not expensive. By any measure, it's not expensive unless you are only looking backwards. The next critique is it could go to zero tomorrow. No, it can't go to zero tomorrow because it has monetary properties. The same way gold will not go to zero tomorrow because gold has monetary properties. So monetary properties include something being divisible, durable, portable, fungible, verifiable, authenticatable, identifiable, and most importantly, scarce. So depending on who you ask, there is somewhere between 5 and 8 common properties that are considered monetary properties of an asset. And Bitcoin is better in all of those categories than anything else that exists in the world. Gold is pretty good, although gold is not sufficiently divisible and not sufficiently portable and not sufficiently scarce, believe it or not. So Bitcoin is superior to gold and every other monetary asset. So Bitcoin will not go to zero unless its monetary properties go to zero. If its monetary properties go to zero, then of course it would not have monetary value and it would not be valuable. But that's not going to happen for all of the reasons I've talked about in numerous videos, for the security, the decentralization, and all of that of the Bitcoin network. Bitcoin has ideal monetary properties that will not go to zero tomorrow. Therefore, its value will not go to zero tomorrow. And its current value of $115,000 per coin reflect the fact that it has those monetary properties, and that's not going to change. It will not suddenly stop having 21 million Bitcoin tomorrow morning. And as long as there's only 21 million Bitcoin tomorrow morning, the value is not going to zero. So the third critique was the individual posted buy cash flowing assets. What he means is buy real estate, where a tenant pays rent, or buy a stock that has a dividend or something like that. But there's a problem with that strategy, which is that every cash flowing asset right now is ridiculously expensive. So real estate, stocks, everything you could put your money right now in, I would argue, is ridiculously expensive as compared to the kind of return you would expect. Now that's measured with something called a price earnings ratio, which is what is the price for every $1 of earnings that can be expected from that asset. So if a stock has a price earnings ratio of 50, that means you have to pay $50 for every $1 of profit. Another way of looking at that is it's the equivalent of a 2% yield. 1/50th is a 2% yield, meaning you're expecting a 2% return on your investment. Well, stocks right now are ridiculously high priced with regard to price earnings ratios. And everybody is saying that, well, that's sustainable because stocks will just go up forever. And every technology, company in the Magnificent Seven is going to be worth, immeasurably new trillions of dollars every year. And that's just objectively not the case. So historically through the stock market, anytime stocks have gotten way out of whack compared to their historical price earnings ratios, eventually they revert to the mean. That's why people say markets are mean reverting. What does that mean? Mean reverting, mean being the average. So mean reverting means average reverting, which means if the average price earnings ratio for the stock market in the past is 16, times earnings or something like that. I don't know what it is, but whatever it is, it's a whole lot higher than that right now. And most analysts who look at the stock market right now say, hey, these price earnings ratios are not sustainable. And so this individual is recommending people buy cash flowing assets, but I would argue there is not any cash flowing assets that make sense to buy right now, because in my opinion, real estate is significantly overvalued. Stocks are significantly overvalued. I'm not aware of any asset that is on sale right now and would be a good investment other than Bitcoin, which is why I have 100% of my assets in Bitcoin, because everything else that I look at in the entire world that I could invest in makes less sense than Bitcoin. And so anyway, to recap, this individual says Bitcoin is too expensive. That is not true. They say it could go to zero tomorrow. That is not true. And they say you should buy cash flowing assets. Again, in my opinion, also not true. But I thought it would make sense to critique this individual's comment step by step. And there you go. Have a great night.